Okay, let me call the meeting to order. It's 8 o'clock. And the first item first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody back after the summer. Hope everybody had a nice summer. I did, so anyway. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to the action items. The first, yes. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's go to the first item, approval of the study task order for Goose Creek Reservoir, raw water pump station.
Is not working. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and the members of the committee. My name is Amulya Podel, Program Manager with the Capital Programs Group. I am here this morning to seek your approval of study task order for the Goose Creek Raw Water Pump Station Alternatives Study. I want to begin with some background on this station. So Goose Creek Raw Water Pump Station, see if the pointer is not working. So the station was built in 1961 along with the Goose Creek Water Treatment Plant. In 2018, when Loudon Water commissioned Trap Rock Water Treatment Plant on the west side of the Goose Creek, the primary source of water for Trap is Potomac River. And in 2021, we built a pipeline that connects Goose Creek Raw Water Pump Station, a pipeline that crosses Goose Creek and connects to Trap Rock. So even after we decommissioned the Goose Creek Water Treatment Plant, this station has been serving as that primary backup to Trap. The station, it is old, built in 1961, went through a major rehabilitation in 1979. And like I said, it's a primary backup feed to Trap. It's a critical component of our overall system resiliency. Next slide here, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on at this site. So a couple of recent condition assessment that we performed at this site, it has indicated that there are several components that have aged, that have exceeded their service life. There are several components that do not meet current code, and a combination of these factors, they present time to time, they present operation and maintenance challenges. Again, primarily because it is just so old. While the topic of the future of this pump station has been a topic of discussion for a couple of years now, last year we had a situation where during a routine test, one of the MCC, the switch gear failed, and that kind of underscored the risk of a system failure here and a need to kind of quickly move with a alternative study to make a decision on what we want to do with this facility. Just as a side note, that particular incident, it was a maintenance issue. We've already ordered a MCC and it's being addressed through a separate project. So this task order here is more like the future of the station and alternative study. And also, as the demand grows, Loudon Water's reliance on water produced at Trap, just the reliance on water produced at Trap continues to grow. And it is essential that we maintain these backup key systems that provide backup to Trap functional to ensure the level of service that we desire, the level of operational resiliency in our system that we desire for long term. So with this study, the main goal of this study is to evaluate the existing raw water pump station and see whether it's salvageable. Can we upgrade it to bring to current standard and keep it going? That's majority of effort that will be involved in this task order. But along with that, we're also looking at some potential other options, being maybe perhaps a new pump station generally in that same area. The other one would be a new pump station on the other side of the creek, closer to Trap Rock. And then the others would be a scenario where we build a pump station near the reservoir, and so that we do not rely on the dam and the impounding in that area, and we can pump directly from the Beaver Dam reservoir. So these are the 4 scenarios we aim to look at with this study. And I'll take a pause just in case anybody have question on these alternatives.
Here, I have.
Yeah.
Okay. So, bigger picture. So, what are the percentages? It's not. Okay, I appreciate it. So, that'll clarify my thought. We have 2 main sources for our central system. One, the Fairfax site, Corbliss, and then this site. What's the percentage that we're feeding for both, and can we provide a whole system from one if one is unavailable?
If Jessica is here, I would.
Yeah,
And
so,
it does.
Jessica.
I'm sorry.
oh, sorry.
Oh, sure.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah, we can't feed the entire system just based on the Goose Creek system on a max day demand. But on an average day, we can mostly cover the system for 24 hours. So there is a little gap there. But in an emergency, like if there was an absolute emergency, like we would fulfill our critical systems that we need to fulfill, and then cover the rest, when we can. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for that answer. It makes it very clear that we have to have a very reliable source
Yes.
here, and this is a very important study. So thank you. Maybe dual. Yeah.
So for this task order, some of the key activities, a typical study task order that would project management. The consultant will review existing documents. There's a lot of in-person physical assessment of the site, condition assessment of the site and components there. The consultants will identify risks, challenges, collect operation and maintenance feedback, and they will also evaluate code compliance. Utilizing this information, the consultant will evaluate 4 alternatives that I outlined before. They will prepare conceptual layouts for all these 4 options, as well as develop a pretty thorough AACE Class 4 cost estimate for each of the options. And all this information would be packaged in a technical memorandum for Loudon Water's review to help with making decision on the future of this facility. For this task order, we selected Hazen and Sawyer. Hazen is one of our environmental BOA consultant, a nationally recognized firm that's pretty experienced in conducting condition assessment of infrastructure like this, and planning and designing facilities similar to this station here. And here I have in front of you is a fee that we've negotiated with Hazen. This fee here is a high-level breakdown of where we landed, but the way we built the fee is it's a bottom-up approach, goes into a much granular detail as we develop the fee. And we felt comfortable just looking at the amount of time that it needs in-person condition assessment. We found the fee to be reasonable. And I did not mention it in the previous slide. The other factor here that this breakdown doesn't represent is, again, a potential, not something that we're pursuing now, but a potential that one day in the future, we may be in a position to remove when, like say, there is a second quarry come along or something like that. we may be in a situation where there is discussion about removing the dam, right? So this alternative study also looks at what is the impact if that dam is to go, what kind of modification we need on the existing intake, how it impacts each of these alternatives, how it impacts. So there is more like a dual study inside that alternative study. So with the current scenario of the dam being there, and also a scenario when the dam is not there. So there is a little bit more nuanced detail on this alternative study included in this task order.
I have two questions. First one, what we talked about before, and you could just repeat what that was. I was questioning the 41,000. It seemed like by the time you get to the technical memorandum, all the heavy work is done. How come there's so much money in the technical memorandum? And you mentioned before.
Yeah, I said that, writing a memo involves drafts and reviews by us and additional conversations. It's not just one summary, right? It's an iterative process that we go through to make sure that the memo captures all the information we want it to and captures, our needs and desires other than what they just found in the field. So provides direction for us moving forward.
I just noticed it looked like it was coming hard.
Yeah, and just because of the need here, we need to move forward a little quickly. The alternative evaluation is a little more than some high-level study that we do on these facilities. We do want Hazen to dive deep into the permitting scenarios and stuff, which sometimes we kind of look at only at a high level. On this one, we're asking them to dive deep because just the need here, we may have to make a decision pretty quick on what to do with this facility. So it's a little broader scope than a typical alternative evaluation task order.
What is this about the dam not being there? What's the scenario there?
So again, like I said, this is not something we're pursuing. So there are among several discussions that are taking place on long-term strategy, right? One that has come up is would that dam is needed perpetually, let's say. So one of the options that has come in the discussion is the dam being removed, right? And we wanted Hazen to look at, and that would have consequences on the intake structure that's existing, or the future station that they're going to look at. So we wanted them to look at both scenario where the dam is there and what kind of intake structure you need. If somehow that dam is removed, for that scenario, what kind of intake is needed and what are the cost implications of a deeper intake? So just these are more like hypothetical scenario analysis is what we've added here.
There's no movement toward.
Not at this time, but it's like for the sake of completeness, right? We're evaluating what another pump station at that site or the intake structure would look like if for some reason we had to remove the dam. Since we're doing a study on this facility as it is, what would that look like?
Mr. Vega.
Not working?
How does that impact our agreement with Reservoir Park?
We're talking about Goose Creek Dam, not Beaver Dam.
So the current flow in an emergency would be from the reservoir into to the Beaver Dam Reservoir into Goose Creek Reservoir on the Goose, and then into our intake. And so they're looking at the alternatives, which I think is
So
a very
maybe-
smart move.
Yeah, maybe a point of clarification. We can't currently pull directly from Beaver Dam
Right.
Reservoir. It has to be released into Goose Creek. That's the current setup.
The question I have is, with the four alternatives, has Loudon Water already predefined some of the evaluation criteria, or is that going to be done in the process?
That's part of the process.
Will Hazen Sawyer be determining the evaluation, working in conjunction with Loudon Water? How is that going to be worked
The
out?
way we've discussed with Hazen is they're going to prepare evaluation criteria, and obviously we will vet the criteria, and ultimately we will select the criteria that we think fits with our need.
Mhm.
And that's typically how we do this alternative study is.
And do you typically weight the evaluation criteria, or is it evenly distributed as far as the
Um,
evaluation criteria?
Now that we did not talk in detail, but that's typically how we do alternative study is we set the criteria and then assign a weighted score, and based on the
Okay.
weighted score.
Yeah. Thank you.
And obviously, the consultant would make the recommendation. Ultimately, the decision is Loudon Waters.
And this is a standard BOA at their hourly rate, nothing different.
Nothing different. Yeah, this is a strict task order in accordance with our BOA
Yep.
contract.
I did want to mention a few more points about the looking at Goose Creek Dam. It's an aging piece of infrastructure as well, same era as this pump station. It's ranked as a high hazard facility with the regulating body, DCR. And we have to do annual inspections and we are taking care of that infrastructure. But, it's just something that we've talked about going back to our initial acquisition of the assets from the city of Fairfax. What could be a long-term strategy. The reservoir itself, Goose Creek Reservoir, is prone to sedimentation. The storage in that reservoir isn't really a meaningful, reliable volume of storage. Really, Beaver Dam is the source of storage. And so those are some of the factors as to why we wanted to really include this as part of the alternatives evaluation.
If you wouldn't mind walking me through kind of a general description of the volumes of water that are in Goose Creek versus Beaver Dam, how they function, kind of take a step back and
Sure.
educate me if you don't mind.
Yeah, so essentially in Goose Creek Reservoir, during periods of high flow, you can be reliant on the actual stream flow, but the reservoir itself, I believe, Goose Creek Reservoir has a volume of around 300 million gallons, although that, I believe, is significantly diminished down to less than 100 million gallons based on sedimentation. And so it's essentially negligible at this point. We do localized dredging around the intake for this pump station to keep it functional, but that sediment is building up. We see a lot of logs and things start to accumulate near the dam, and that's a maintenance concern as well. And so that's Goose Creek Reservoir. Beaver Dam contains about 1.5 billion gallons of water, so equivalent to Milestone Reservoir. And so during periods of low flow, we would release from Beaver Dam Reservoir to, put water there to the intake.
We estimate this task order to take about 6 to 7 months. And like I said, we do not show any design because that is when once this study is completed, along with some other discussions that are taking place regarding raw water master planning, a decision will be made at that point. So currently, we're not sure when the design would start, and it does not show up on this schedule here. So this project is in our 10-year CIP. We're tracking it under PWS 21. And last year, we allocated a budget of $200,000 for planning. And Mr. Chairman, this is the last slide, I think, before the motion, so I can take a pause if any questions.
If I may, I wanted to add one more item. So in terms of the selection of the consultant for this task order with Hazen, Hazen has a history with helping us on tasks with Goose Creek. In particular, we had a project some years ago to connect SCADA to this raw water pump station. And then when we worked through the pipeline connection to Trap Rock, they were the engineer of record. And through that task, they actually performed some initial evaluations on the existing pump station. But at that time, we elected not to move forward and we just completed the pipeline project. So those were some of the reasons we felt of our consultants under the environmental BOA that this particular task made sense for those efficiency reasons to select Hazen to help us with it. So just wanted to mention that to the committee.
And remember the years ago when we approved putting the pipe underneath to go to Trap Rock, that seemed like the right thing to do then. And it's an asset there that we still have.
Yeah, and I have the motion in front of
Any
you.
other questions? I'll read the motion. I move the recommendation to the board to award a study task order for the Goose Creek Raw Water Pump Station Alternatives Study to Hazen and Sawyer for $133,200 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $140,000. Additional costs will require board approval. Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Consent or non-consent?
And move it to consent, right? Okay, the next item is the water construction contract, phase 3.
There it is. Okay. Okay, good. Okay. All right. Good morning. My name is Rick Zafel, and I am here today to request the award of the construction contract for the Broad Run Phase 3 program Package 1 site work project. And so taking a look here at the overall Phase 3 program, the site work project or Package 1 is denoted with the dashed outline that kind of follows this path. Whoops, I went a little far around it, but it follows this path here. And then the different shades of blue that are in that area, and also a little bit to the south or beneath as well, those represent the follow-on vertical projects that will come after Package 1 and provide the capacity increase that's associated with the Phase 3 program. So again, this is just for the site work project, Package 1. So to take a look at the Broad Run site from an aerial view, we are kind of on the east side of the property, looking northwest. And so this area, this sort of clear area here is where the Package 1 project will be constructed. And some of the key elements of the project here. So we've got our initial entrance here. This is an existing entrance that the contractor will use for the first 90 days of construction. And then there's a new entrance that will be built as part of the project, and that will cover the last 9 months or so of construction. And then there's a couple of other elements I just want to call out. We've got the contractor's laydown area there, right in this area. And then we've also got Dominion's laydown area denoted. That's for a project that Dominion will start next year, the Aspen to Golden project. And then also we've got the north stockpile here. So this represents the large area of material that will be spread and graded across the site to achieve the right grades in advance of the vertical projects. So there's a lot of earthwork and excavation and moving of material associated with the project. That's the bulk of this project. And then just one more I'll call out. There's a little bit of tree clearing as shown right there associated with this project. Any questions so far just on the scope of the site work project?
Entrance is off of the parkway.
It is. Yep, it's to the north. If you kind of come down Loudoun County Parkway from the north, oftentimes there's a vehicle sitting there. There's the curb apron there, and there's a vehicle sitting there, and it's that entrance that will become that permanent entrance.
And we'll have this done before Dominion starts their power line construction.
It will be mostly done, but there will be a
I was
little
thinking
bit
about
of,
the grading and all of that.
yeah, there'll be a little bit of overlap, but it shouldn't, we'll manage that.
Dominion's not always fast in getting started.
Yeah. Okay. So just to talk through the scope of work here. So I mentioned this is a site work project, so a lot of earthwork, and that includes erosion and sediment controls, clearing, grading. There's also reforestation as well that we are performing, and then some travel ways or roads that are included in that. And then we also have fencing and gates, stormwater ponds, yard piping and conduits, and then one pressure reducing valve vault as well. And so the graphic in the middle of the screen here, this shows the fencing and gates denoted by the green color and the blue. And pardon this graphic, it is turned on its side. So north is to the right. And then it's the same case with this other graphic here. North is also to the right. And this shows the tree restoration area and then one of the 3 stormwater ponds that are included in the project.
Cool.
One question.
Yes.
Since there's no vertical work here, what kind of permits are required to to do all this work in the county, state?
The grading permit is kind of the key permit that
That's it?
is required from the county.
There much, excuse me, is there a lot of conveyance systems that feed into these stormwater ponds, or is it just surface runoff?
It's mostly surface runoff that's going to feed the ponds.
And I understand from the written part that the yard piping and conduit, that includes conduits, plumbing, electrical, all that.
Correct. Yep. So it includes the storm piping. There's some underground conduit that's associated with the gates. Several of the gates are motorized, so it's power out and it's also control or communication as well. And so those are the underground conduits. And then that pressure reducing valve vault has a short run of water line that will come into the facility and provide looped service for more robust potable water service to the plant.
That's a lot more work than the 4 words indicate. Thank you.
Okay. So our bid results here. So we opened bids on July 23rd and we received 3 bids. William A. Hazel was the low bid, followed by Clark Construction Group, and then Eastern Contractors was our third and our highest bid. And so in the evaluation of those bids, we determined that William A. Hazel, the low bidder, was responsive and responsible. We confirmed their bid and their understanding of the scope of work. And then we also compared their bid results with market conditions and specifically the engineer's estimate. And then we also checked references as well on William A. Hazel. And they are a household name in the local site work industry in the Northern Virginia area.
Those are all good companies.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. And so kind of the really good news here is that, we're 4.4 million below the engineer's estimate. So this is a fabulous
With that
bid
much-
result.
With that much delta, do you think they might have made a mistake in their bid prep?
I think it's efficiency. I think because their, kind of wheelhouse work is site work, that they can,
Most work is their wheelhouse, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
that they can do it a bit more efficiently than the other 2 bidders.
Seems funny with all the tariff nonsense going on, that these bids are actually lower. You would think that it'd be all over the place, but it's not.
Yeah,
Not a lot of concrete in there.
diesel fuel, a lot
Well,
of
maybe
fuel
that's-
to move the
Yeah, fuel,
move the
yeah,
soil around. Yeah,
yeah. Hazel bringing the big pans and stuff, yeah.
yeah.
Good.
All right. So looking at our schedule here, so we're in this tail end of the bid and award stage right here. The plan looking forward is to get the contractor started in the 4th quarter of 2026, around mid-October or so. And it's a 14-month project, so it will run through the 4th quarter of 2026 here. And the nice thing is this will keep us ahead of the Package 2 project, which is scheduled to start construction right here in the 1st quarter of 2027. So it'll give us a little bit of separation between the 2 projects.
I think the way you folks are doing it in phases is really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Gives you a chance to back off if something happens.
Take little breaks in
Yeah,
between.
that'll make-
Okay, so looking at our 10-year CIP, so this project, the construction of this project is denoted by BRW 48 in the 10-year CIP. And of course, this project, the driver is central service growth, and that's the driver for the entire Phase 3 program. And then the 10-year CIP allocates $14.5 million for the construction of this project. So we're under that with our low bidder. And this is really my last slide before the motion, I guess. Any questions before we move on to the motion?
As envisioned in the site development package, is there a lot of import, export of material? Is there suitable material on site?
So we thought there would be some import, but the latest calculations from the engineer actually show that it's pretty even. We have a net extra of 3,000 cubic yards. I just verified that days ago. So we just have enough. But that stockpile that I showed on the earlier slide, there's about 230,000 cubic yards in that will be redistributed and graded out across that northern site.
And that's suitable or unsuitable?
It's suitable material.
Okay.
And then there's also a little bit of other excavation as well, about 40,000 yards of additional excavation. And most of that we anticipate will be suitable for backfill.
Great.
Some of it will be probably rock that.
And roughly the area of disturbance, is that, how
Um,
many acres is that?
I don't have that
Don't-
measurement. And I know that the whole site is around 350 acres. And this is less than half of that, but it's somewhere in the
Okay.
half to a quarter of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we've got our motion.
Anybody else want to read the motion this time?
There you go. Okay.
I move the recommendation to the board to approve award of the construction contract for the Broad Run Water Reclamation Foundation Phase 3 Expansion Program, Package 1 project mouthful, to William and Hazel, Inc. for $11,994,950 with an approximate 5% contingency fee controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $12,600,000. Additional costs will require board approval.
Put this on the consent agenda.
For over 11 million?
Straightforward. We could do it either way.
You think consent, you're saying? Or just
I
straightforward?
think over $10 million, we should put it on the general. That's my opinion.
How the rest of you feel? Same thing?
I mean, I'm conflicted. Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm conflicted because on the one hand, the approval in the capital improvement plan was for $14.5 million, which has already received board approval. So I don't know what the protocol is. I
Over
certainly,
a certain threshold that.
Not that I know.
is there something magical about the 10 million?
Our chair is wanted to see more on consent than on there, but one of the board members can pull it off consent also if they
Okay.
want to hear more about it. Or the chair and the vice chair in their planning meeting could make a different decision.
So what are you
Okay.
suggesting, consent?
This committee, because of me, put too many things on consent that we didn't need to, so I've been trying to back off.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It seems to me that even though it's the $1 million that it is, that it's pretty straightforward. There's nothing magical about it.
And it's below.
And like you say, any board member could pull it off consent if
Yeah.
they want.
12,600,000.
I think we should move this to consent.
I agree with consent as well.
Who's that?
Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Chair Allen.
Chair. Oh, that would make it-
Didn't realize.
Right.
The
Okay,
voice
can we
from the
vote on
sky.
that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Chairman Allen, I don't think we all realized you were there.
It's a good thing we didn't say
I'm
anything.
always listening. Big
I'm
brother.
straighter up in my chair now.
Okay, the next thing is the capital construction quarterly report.
Actually, I think we have the,
I've got.
We have
I've got-
another
I've
phase
got
3.
one-
Is there
Yeah,
another?
I've got one more here.
Oh, I missed it.
Yep.
All right, let's go to that one.
Okay. Good morning again. So this is for the, the CA services that would go with this package 1 project. And some of my early slides are a bit repetitive. This is the first 4 slides or so, just kind of rehash what was shared in the last presentation. This is, again, just the overall view of the phase 3 expansion program. And then this was the kind of the graphic, the aerial graphic looking northwest that shows some of the individual components of the project and the project area, the work area. And then here was the scope of work again, and then our schedule. And then I'll get into the so the goals for construction administration. Why are we asking for construction administration here? So the purposes will be to support the Loudon Water PM as through the administration of construction. Definitely important on this project is providing specialty inspection and testing services. A lot of that will be soil compaction testing because of the, large acreage of regrading and moving soil. Also, CA services will include review of submittals and RFCs to ensure that, we have good construction quality and compliance with the contract documents. We will be leveraging the design consultant's experience with that continuity through construction, providing CA services. Design consultant is Hazen. And then also we will reduce Loudon Water's liability or risk of exposure to things like delays, claims, issues with contractor performance that we could encounter, but we don't anticipate. So these are some of the reasons and goals of the CA services for this project here. And so this is a common slide that we typically share with CA services requests here. Across the top, these are sort of the standard CA services that we use on projects. And then on the bottom, these are somewhat specialty services that you would probably have more closely aligned to a vertical project. And so in this case, on the bottom, we're not seeking any of those services from the engineer, but on the top, we do have our classic services like submittal review, shop drawing reviews, meeting attendance, change management support, RFCs, and the like. And so these are most of the services that are included in this request. And so my next slide includes a cost breakdown here, showing the percentage of the total budget represented by 7 of the key groupings of CA services here. And these are common groupings of CA services. And I'll just point out that submittals and that specialty inspection testing represent the highest percentages of the total CA services budget. And this is typical. And the driver on the specialty inspection services, so I mentioned before, a lot of that soil compaction testing, and then also included in that is concrete testing as well. And then benchmarking and surveying is also a piece of that specialty inspection and testing budget. And so the good news here is that we are at 6.6% of the total construction cost, even with the fabulously low bid price. And so that keeps us under our historical metrics for a major infrastructure project and certainly a minor facility upgrade as well. So any questions on the metrics or the overall cost or level of effort in the CA services?
For the survey component, is that, will the contractor not be using GPS-driven equipment? I mean, it's only site other than the stormwater ponds. It just seems to be site work.
Yeah, I think the third-party testing agency, which is Triad, that will be working as a sub-consultant to Hazen, they'll certainly be using the, GPS as well to verify elevations, do the, compaction testing and other tests.
Thanks.
Any other questions on the cost breakdown?
Good.
All right. So back to the CIP. Similar as in the last presentation, the $786,000 budget fits well within the 14.5 million allocation in the 10-year CIP. Questions here? Oh, and I got us to the motion here.
Question?
Yes, sir.
Mr.
Who wants to do
Chairman.
the motion this time?
So I move the recommendation to the board to approve contract amendment, the Broad Run wastewater reclamation facility, Phase 3 expansion program, Package 1, project to Hazen and Sawyer for $786,000 with an approximate 5% contingency to be controlled by the general manager for a total authorized budget of $825,000. Additional costs will require board approval.
And to be put on the consent.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to mention in this particular contract, Hazen was selected as the BOA consultant as they were the engineer of record on the design for this project. And so that is the primary factor that went into our selection of Hazen versus any of the other BOA consultants on this particular task.
Since you brought that up, is it, did you solicit other bids and select Hazen, or you just sole source it?
Well, Hazen is already contracted with us
Yeah.
under the BOA contracts, and since they were the engineer of record, we
And there are
just
several other
developed a
choices.
fee with Hazen, a scope and fee.
The companies are on the BOA contract. I just don't remember.
There are 5 on the
Five.
environmental BOA and 4 on the civil BOA.
Okay, now we'll get to the, unless I skipped something again, capital construction coordinator.
This is the one with all the good pictures.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. We will present on the second quarter 2025 capital construction report. I will be covering the HVAC improvement or rehabilitation project at the Broad Run Laboratory, followed by a snapshot of the new Russell Branch sewage pump station. Then we'll take a deeper dive into Milestone, followed by Rick's report on Broad Run expansion. And then we will wrap up with the quarterly figures for the past quarter of 2020, second quarter of 2025. So this first project intends to perform or provide rehabilitation work for the Broad Run Laboratories HVAC system, which was undergoing some challenges with maintaining the required environmental conditions within the lab for a few years. The work has largely been completed as of the second quarter. All of the new systems are in place. And I think it was right around the time at the end of June when we were getting into startup and commissioning, testing and balancing the new system. And since then, we've made pretty good progress, and it's just about to achieve substantial completion. We're troubleshooting some final issues we are seeing with maintaining those humidity targets that are so critical to the environmental conditions for regulated operation within the lab. So we're working through that. We anticipate that for the third quarter report, we will provide you with a substantially completed report for this project. Any questions on this one? Moving on to Russell Branch and the installation of a 4.5 MGD new 4.5 MGD sewage pump station to meet the demands of the central system and the JLMA service areas. This one got off to a little bit of a bumpy start. The contractor was not as quick to mobilize as we hoped, and there was a few starts and stops along the way, but we are now, as you can tell by the picture, well underway with the construction of the structure itself. Starting to come out of the ground. So far, no major issues other than that 1 or 2 month delay. I think we're up to sort of close to 2 months of delay in the overall project that we're tracking right now. We're working with the contractor to come up or develop a recovery schedule, see if we can get us back on track and mitigate the current delays. And hopefully achieve substantial completion by the contractual date. But so far, we have completed excavation. Slab has been constructed and concrete has been placed right after the cutoff for the reporting period for the second quarter. And so, yeah, it's progress has picked up, but I should report on the delay here so that we can track how we do moving forward with our recovery measures. Little bit of a different story on Milestone. This one is continuing to stay on schedule, and actually, per the contractor's own report, we're looking at 2.5 months of float on the overall completion, so 2.5 months ahead of schedule. And as you can see by the picture there, we have now, as of the end of the second quarter, initiated construction of the pump station structure itself. At the end of the next quarter, we should also see full completion of the bridge, or at least, we will be into punch list work, but we will be able to start using it very, very soon here, towards the end of this year. Completion of, in the second quarter, we had completion of tunnels A and C, both excavation, lining, and I should also throw in there, B as well. So all 3 tunnels were fully excavated. And I believe we were just about to reach the very bottom of the shaft, which has now been completed beyond the second quarter, but wasn't at the end of the second. We're ongoing with the installation of the 42-inch raw water piping. And as I mentioned before, bridge and pump station well underway. Mr. Bonfils, did you have a?
No, I'm just looking ahead at some of the nice pictures. And smiling.
The financial figures and overall project contract summary look good as well. We are just under $1 million in change orders through the second quarter. We are looking at 43% spent on 34% of time elapsed, which reflects that slight advantage that we have on the currently projected schedule. And the final completion due date is still holding strong there at May of 2028 for this project. So far, no major issues to report on in terms of communication, coordination, disputes, change orders, or anything like that. So we're happy about that as well. And with that, I will kick it over to Rick if there are no questions on Milestone. That's my one. That's my one graphic for
That's my favorite picture.
Yeah, well, there you go. I couldn't help myself, but we'll come up with something a little fresher for the next one.
I like that one though.
I was thinking it's probably worth reflecting for a moment. We, as an organization, we were looking at constructing this pump station on the actual reservoir site initially, and we took quite a pause and we went to the CMAR option, and we were able to acquire this site. And it's a real success story that we were able to accomplish this tunneling work so efficiently. That wasn't going to be the case on the previous site location. It was going to have to be more successive, and so it's just a real testament to the decision making and the leadership and the project team here, and a good contractor to partner with. So I just wanted to take a moment now we've gotten to this point.
To add to that, congratulations on a good safety record and the fact that it's complicated work, and so far, all good.
I keep repeating, these guys have a ridiculously low change order percentage. I don't know how they do it. I guess the engineers help them start.
Planning.
These 2 guys right here, really tough.
Yeah. So you mentioned that these tunnels are going to be lined. As hard as that rock is, why do you have to line them?
There's lots of technical reasons that we could go into, but it's mainly for just safety and maintenance. You know, even though that there is some rock bolting that's performed along the way for the safety of the workers or the miners, that liner does provide that extra bit of resiliency and longevity so that any future, you know, movement within the rock or anything like that is contained and we don't have any operational issues down the road.
That's such tough rock.
It is.
Um,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back and ask about the delay on the pump station project and whether there are any provisions that give us some remedy to the delays and whether you think we'll need to enforce them or whether that plan to catch up.
So I alluded a little bit to it earlier. There are general condition provisions or conditions within our general conditions that provide us with the right to request a recovery schedule from the contractor as a first sort of mitigation measure to see if it's even realistically achievable, right? We can only compress and make activities concurrent. There's no more sort of magic tricks that we can sort of pull off to catch back up. And contractor has accepted responsibility for these delays. We haven't seen a claim trying to pin it on, you know, any other factors or owner actions or anything like that. So we're heading down a positive road, but we haven't seen that recovery schedule yet. Beyond that, obviously, I can't help but you know, mention that there are liquidated damages or damage provisions in the contract that incentivize pulling out all the stops to get back on track and try to complete the project within the contractually allotted time. So that's sort of off the top of my head, the two things that we're looking at. But we'll continue to work with the contractor to see if we can come up with something that helps us here.
So the recovery schedule will be a no-cost recovery schedule by the contractor, so what you're
That-
working towards.
That's correct. They take another look at the logic and the sequence of activities. They try to identify any efficiencies that can't be gained. You know, with the constraints of an excavated pit like that, you can't always, you know, throw as much manpower as you want, or, you know, but there are things, you know, there's a very experienced contractor, Archer Western. There are things that can be done to improve the situation. And maybe come next quarter, I can have something better to report on how far we've been able to mitigate that current delay.
Thank you.
There we go. Okay, we'll continue on here with the second quarter presentation. So I've got the Broad Run expansion project here one last time. During the first quarter presentation, I thought it would be the last appearance, but final completion slipped into the third quarter just a bit. We achieved final completion on July 25th. And so this will be the last appearance of this project here. It will be on the completed projects list next quarterly presentation. But the numbers are unchanged from the last time. These are the final numbers on the project here in terms of change order total, revised final contract value, work performed, et cetera. Any questions on the Broad Run project? Which are done now. Yeah, those were, this was as of June 30th, so there were just a handful of items left to complete, and the contractor got those done in first part of July, and so July 25th, final completion, and we're processing the closeout on this project. Okay, so this brings us to our three lists here. At the end of the presentation, we've got our active construction projects here. We had 8 active in the second quarter or through the second quarter. Any questions on any of these time numbers, which are on the left, or time statistics, or contract price statistics on the right. Any questions?
The last one on the bottom, the generator project, any update on that?
Work activity has just begun on that facility to install the new generator.
That's
So
important.
things are progressing well on that one.
Good.
I'll provide a snapshot for the next
Yeah,
quarterly report.
I just always curious about that one because it's an important resiliency
It is.
and it's important. Yeah.
Okay. We had one completed project here for the second quarter of this year, Reservoir Park.
And this one's sort of a similar story to the Broad Run project in that it was completed in the first, but we couldn't quite hit our final completion, sort of full closeout on the second quarter, so it slipped a little bit, but we all know that's
Punch list. item.
Punch list. Yeah.
punch list and administrative closeout requirements.
Beautiful part.
Permitting.
It is. Yeah. Okay, and then we've got our look ahead with our upcoming projects there, and you'll see the package one project is number one there on the list, and that's going to start construction in October, as I mentioned. And then there's several other projects as well that should start construction in the next six months or so.
Colonial is a
Street name.
That's just the street name.
Oh.
It's just the street name. Yeah.
Not in
Thank
gas.
you. It's
Not-
not the
not-
gas pipeline.
No wonder Colonial Park.
Yeah.
West Beach, Concord, and Canola.
Okay. Any questions here on the upcoming projects or just overall?
I'm very sensitive Colonial Pike because when I was at Fairfax, I was in court with them. So when I see Colonial.
It triggers you.
It triggered a bad memory. Huh? Questions?
Any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job as usual, folks. Okay, the next item is a capital spending summary report.
Good morning. Time for the best part of the meeting, right? Budget time. I think this is the July report. So if you're following along in board docs or diligent community, as it's called now, I've skipped over item number 1 and just jumped to item number 2. Item number 1 just showed the spending through June, and this is item number 2 shows it through July, which of course includes the June spending as well. So I just want to mention here that, for the first half of the year, spending through May was really, really right on target. And then you see in June, there's a deviation between the actual and the projected. And then if you look from June to July and you just look at the slope of the lines, the projected and the actual, we're back on target again. So I'll get into the numbers a little bit and just talk about that drop in June and what we attribute that to. But before I do that, I thought I would just kind of introduce Mike Beardsley and give Mike doesn't get much of an opportunity to speak in front of the CIP committee. And Mike's just going to share a little bit of a really good story about a project that, an IT project that you all, I'm sure, are familiar with that was hit on budget and on time in the first half of the year. So, Mr. Mike?
Thanks, Tom. Tom just stole my thunder,
Ah.
but that was the gist of it. I think the performance in the early part of the year of being right on that slope is due to the S/4HANA project. But anyway, I'll just describe a little bit more about that project, which I think you all are familiar. So just to kind of rewind, you approved or the board approved the S/4HANA project upgrade back in April 11th of 2024. And the drivers for that upgrade is that our SAP platform was nearing end of life. There were several technical milestones that we were going to breach in the next 2 years, followed by sort of a final end of life of our SAP platform in 2030. And so we had gone through an assessment process and really determined that our next, our best alternative was to upgrade SAP, our ECC version, to the latest version, which is called S/4HANA. And there were several components to that scope, including a move to the SAP cloud platform called RISE. There were significant changes to a couple of business areas as well, such as our finance area. There was more change in that area than some others. And in particular, changes to our HR platform as we move to SAP's SuccessFactors solution, as well as the Service Cloud component, which is basically the software that our customer service representatives use to take calls in the call center. So there's, again, significant changes in some of our business functionality. And again, as you know, SAP is our platform for everything, for all of our business functionality, that is. It's finance, HR, billing, customer service, procurement, asset management, a few other things as well. So it's really soup to nuts for us. So this project kicked off in June of 2024. It was a pretty intense 9-month implementation effort. It was a $9.815 million project that you approved with a 5% contingency. And in keeping with a theme of change orders, our total change order percentage was 0.25%. We had a $24,000 change order, some minor additional scope that we added for that project. And we hit the target. We went live on schedule on April 1st. Very proud of that because that's not typical for large software projects. Construction projects too, right? They often tend to run long. But in this case, we nailed our go live target. In the course of our execution, we implemented something like 120 end-to-end different business processes, executed over 1,000 different tests. We had 7 different test cycles that we went through to make sure the software was ready. We trained all 350 employees. Some of them received extensive training on new business processes, but everybody's, at a minimum, their timesheet process changed. So there's a lot of change across the organization. And it was a major success. On day one, all of our major processes worked. That's payroll, billing, payments from customers, work orders, the call center. Our call center was taking calls at the end of the first month. Our average call time was about 6 minutes and 17 seconds, which is comparable to our pre-implementation call handle time. And that's a great metric. That's not typical for a major call center upgrade. We also processed some 15,000 work orders in the first month, 1,400 timesheets, millions of dollars of payments were accepted in the finance area and so forth. So I don't want to gild the lily too much. There have been some challenges, of course. There's some areas that we're still working on. But by and large, for a major software implementation, this has been really an extraordinary success. This project extends the life of our SAP system to at least 2040. It's obviously a lot of improved functionality in areas like finance and HR. But it also brings to us advanced capabilities like the ability to start using artificial intelligence functionality that's now becoming embedded in the software. So it really sets the stage for future success. And this aligns with our strategic plan as well. We have an exceptional operations goal in our strategic plan. There's several components of that it supports, such as adopting advanced technologies, such as artificial intelligence, but also just maintaining our technology roadmap and making sure that we continue to be up to date and taking advantage of the latest technology. So I would just like to close by thanking everybody that was involved, the board for approving this and supporting it, Brian, who was actually actively engaged in this project and making sure that we stayed on track, as well as the rest of the GMO. All of our members from the GMO and our directors were engaged in making sure that their business units were supporting this, that they had the right resources assigned to make this successful. But where the rubber meets the road is our staff. And so the folks on the business solutions team, on the IT side, but also all of our staff in the business units that participated, they had to do their day jobs at the same time while executing this project. So it was a really heavy lift for them. They did a fantastic job. And then I'd like to close with a couple of folks that really made this successful. Our project manager, Laura Bowers, Jack Jadriev, our deputy project manager, and then
Mark Wanko, Director of Business Solutions, who sort of the master of all things business process. Those three really made this project successful as well. So that's it. Just wanted to provide that update about a successful and completed project from earlier this year. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
You know, you thank the board. I think it goes the other way. I think the board owes you guys a thank you. And not only that, but this is typical of this organization. They take on difficult stuff and they do a bang-up job. I'm very, very good. I'd like to thank you, not the other way around.
Well, thanks to all the staff. I will just say that what we've built in our technology environment is, and this is true in other areas in the organization as well, but it's the envy of our peers. I just met with one of my peers yesterday, and they were doing what we were doing 3 years ago, and they're still doing it. They haven't been able to get over the hump and actually implement S/4HANA, even though they have the same drivers that we do. They just can't get there. So that's kind of a typical story for us.
This continues the first-class effort of this organization. It's amazing.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Mike. As Mike mentioned, there's a lot of great stories like that, I'm sure. Just looking though here back at the numbers, if we go to July, we see that the actual spending was around $79 million with a forecast of 96 million. And really the delta between the actual and the forecast can kind of be attributed to two categories. One, the Broad Run project that you just approved was a little bit delayed in the bidding, so there was a little bit of lag. It had intended to start a little earlier, so it's a little bit behind in its actuals compared to where it was projected. But most of that delta of about $17–18 million is actually in reimbursements. And when we say reimbursements in the language of the CIP, what we mean is Loudon Water paying out money to developers who have been building infrastructure in partnership with us. So we try to do the best we can as we put together the CIP projections and the CIP budget to work with the developers, and our staff does a great job of doing that. And they try to project when those developers are going to request, when they're going to complete their work and then request that we reimburse them for that. And there's always a large challenge with that. We're trying to figure out when we're going to pay out, money, and we're probably third or fourth party, to that, because you have a contractor that's doing the work on behalf of a developer and we're communicating with the developer. So there's so many different variables that can affect that. But that's really what the bulk of that delta is that we had projected that some reimbursements would be requested in the May-June timeframe, and they just haven't materialized yet. We do think that that they will come through. It was just the timing, not so much the magnitude of them. So that's really where the difference is for the first half of the year. And then if we're going to switch over now to the reforecast for the second half and end of the year, you're going to see that the original budget for 2025 that was approved by the board was 190 million, and our reforecast is that number will be about 162 million. It'll be about 85%, which is pretty much on target with the last. I went back and kind of averaged over the last 5 years, and our reforecast has averaged about 84% of whatever the original approved budget was. So we're following that similar trend. There is an included variance report, which I'll bring up here on the screen. This is what we typically include with the reforecast. So the 190 million down to 161. Again, that's a delta of about 28 million and about 15% of the original budget. You can see that we've kind of given some categories to that. The bulk of that is in that first item, projects that are either behind schedule or delayed. And again, most of the projects that we have control over we're on target with those. The bulk of that spending is really just trying to forecast when these reimbursements will be paid out to the developers. And so when we look at this 162 rather than the 190, most of that delta, again, is in reimbursements to developers. And a lot of it has to do with the JLMA area. And we'll pay those out, but we're not quite exactly sure of the timing of them. Maybe some of those will come due later this year. If not, we would certainly expect that they will be reforecasted into next year's CIP. The last thing that I'll leave you with before asking if you have any questions is just, I think with some of the, the first half of the year, certainly there have been some kind of typical delays, maybe some rescheduling. I think we saw even that Sam was talking about the accelerations in Milestone Reservoir, a little bit of the delays on Broad Run, on the Russell Branch Pump Station. But they're all pretty typical, pretty minor in the overall CIP when you're looking at $190 million. And really none of those delays or those reschedulings have resulted in any impacts to our service reliability or our compliance nor safety at Loudon Water. So, and we really didn't have any new projects added or canceled for the first half of the year. So everything is pretty much looking on target. Again, a little bit of a deviation perhaps in the overall spending, primarily towards those reimbursements. And if there's any questions, I certainly would be happy to try to answer them. Questions? All right, well, thank you.
What was the comment from the finance committee? Was the comment from the finance committee on that extra $28 million?
I think it was silent, but I'll let Sally.
We, so the finance committee met yesterday and they spent a lot of time going over the operating budget. There was one slide on this in that presentation. So there wasn't as deep dive provided to the finance committee. They were presented with the fact that availability charge revenue is higher than anticipated and what impact that might have going forward. And it does show a reduced borrowing in the forecast that was presented to you earlier in the year. That doesn't incorporate any of the new budget for next year. So right now it looks like we'll need to borrow less money, but we'll come back to you in the spring with an update. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brian.
I just wanted to add one thing that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I called in customer service about 3 weeks ago, tried not to let them know who I was, and I had a suspected leak on my property. I don't remember the fellow that I talked to. He was very helpful. And just shows the customer service is doing the work, at least for me. I hope he didn't know who I was, so. But anyway. Are there any other questions, any other thoughts? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next week.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Bye, everyone.